Kia ora and welcome to the Niggly Niche Cast. I am the Diggly Doodah Doc, the Peptoy Panther, Mr. Slippers, here with the Wobbly Wildcard for another episode of the Niche Cast. And today's a fairly special episode around the Niche Case offices because it's the preview, the full Humdinger preview of the Plunket Shield that starts up on the 21st of October in a couple of days. So we're going to go through every team, every association, or personally I just like to call them cricket clubs because who gives a fuck about associations and all that. We're going to go through our domestic cricket clubs and preview their squads and just offer a bit of information about these teams and these clubs and these players and the domestic cricket circuit. If you do like listening to us talk cricket, this is going to be a good way to absorb information about domestic cricket and the Plunket Shield. Otherwise, I have written a fair amount of previewy type of stuff on the website Blogting as well, so you can go read about that. And yeah, let's say hello to the Wobbly Wildcard. How go thee?
Not too bad, Doc. Anytime we get to talk in depth about domestic cricket, it is a good time.
It is a jolly old time, and New Zealand Cricket just signed this amazing new revolutionary broadcast deal. You know, it's going to be great. It's going to put cricket into free-to-air TV and all that sort of stuff, but there's no Plunket Shield being broadcasted. Maybe very minimal Ford Trophy as well. So
I think just the final for Ford Trophy, which I'm pretty sure is what they did last year on Sky anyway. So I'm bloody racking through this thing trying to figure out where anything actually changed, because it seems like it's just going to be the exact same stuff, except that TVNZ are going to have a couple 2020s now and then, which is fine, but Prime TV had a couple 2020s now and then too as well, so it seems like exactly the same. But yeah, the first thing I looked for when I saw that deal was like, how is the Plunket Shield going to be affected? Because obviously we know the Plunket Shield's been stiffed a bit by financial pressures in recent times, cut the rounds by a couple last time, which is the same deal again this year. The one thing I'll say where it might be affected is that it does seem like New Zealand Cricket have just got like, like Scrooge McDuck had that big, that big like bloody warehouse full of money, and now it seems like New Zealand Cricket might be able to afford one of those of their own, because it seems Spark Sport have just like paid way more for exactly what Sky Sports already had. Spark Sport have paid way more on top to get the same thing. So if there's a lot more money floating around New Zealand Cricket, maybe they can invest a bit more back into the Plunket Shield and maybe get some cheeky live streams going, or fix the rounds up again so everyone plays everyone twice like they used to. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But money does talk, and if money was the problem for why Plunket Shield got shrunk, maybe money will be the reason Plunket Shield can come back to extreme prominence. Of course, we already give it extreme prominence, don't we?
We do indeed. We're pretty much responsible for the coverage of Plunket Shield. So
we're running the show.
It's nice. You mentioned nothing's really changed, and that is true to the extent where the organisation who host Plunket Shield Cricket, the organisation who talk down on the lack of support for Plunket Shield Cricket, are the same organisation who do not promote Plunket Shield Cricket. So New Zealand Cricket always complain about no one goes to watch Plunket Shield games, there's not much audience for it, there's not much support for it. New Zealand Cricket are also the organisation who do very little to actually promote and invest in Plunket Shield Cricket. So that's always a fun little aside. I just want to mention Wildcard before we do get into Plunket Shield previews. The Women's Big Bash League is starting in a couple of days, actually. It snuck up on me here. So I just want to get this out to anyone listening who does support and enjoy cricket, female, male cricket. I will be writing about this tomorrow, but I just want to say that Susie Bates, Sophie Devine, they are playing for the Adelaide Strikers again. Maddie Green and Amelia Kerr will play for Brisbane Heat, which is a good little score for those two young players. Leah Tahuhu is playing for the Melbourne Renegades. Her wife, Amy Satterthwaite, won't play this year. And Katie Martin, the veteran wicketkeeper, she's with the Melbourne Stars. Good in for her. Rachel Priest is with the Sydney Thunder once again. So good to have a nice, solid crew in the Women's Big Bash League. We will shuffle over to the Plunket Shield. We're going to start in the north, at the top, with the Auckland Aces, who have a new coach, Heinrich Milan. They got a couple new recruits as well in Kyle Jamieson and Corey Anderson. Corey Anderson leaves Northern Districts to join Auckland Aces, and Kyle Jamieson initially, he was born and raised in Auckland, and then he went down to Canterbury after he left school, and he came up through the Canterbury system as a very tall, lively swing bowler, and now he's going to be adding his skill set to the Auckland Aces bowling attack. And that's one of the key points about this Auckland Aces group is their seam attack. You got Kyle Jamieson, very skillful, talented bowler. Matt McEwen is the steady veteran seamer who was the best bowler for Auckland, I believe, last season, with best seam bowler. Will Somerville took a couple more wickets, but Matt McEwen, solid seamer. And then you got Jamie Brown, you got Ben Lister, who are very talented young seamers. And I just like that core, that just steady seam bowling department. Now that you've got Kyle Jamieson coming in, Corey Anderson may bowl a bit as well. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see with that. Will Somerville is going to be the spinner. He is a very talented spinner, especially at this level. He was the fourth highest wicket taker in the Plunket Shield last season, so he's going to back that up for the Auckland Aces. Dependable, solid, going to do a good job every game. And then wildcard, the very intriguing element of this Auckland Aces group is their young to semi-established batting unit, led by Glenn Phillips, who not many people will be aware was third in Plunket Shield runs last season. Everyone thinks of him as a T20 blaster, but he's doing a good job in the Plunket Shield, so I'm going to keep a close eye on him over these next few weeks. But then you also factor in Mark Chapman, who's fallen off the wagon a bit in terms of Black Caps selection. He's going to be in for a big season. You also have Sean Solier, who has dabbled in extraordinary run scoring at this level, but he's been a bit up and down. So Sean Solier, Glenn Phillips, Mark Chapman. You also have someone like Robbie O'Donnell, who's been on the circuit for a couple of years now, and he could shine a bit more. So there's that super talented group of young to semi-established batsmen who they all need to just churn out big runs if they want to look at some future Black Caps selections or immediate Black Caps opportunities. And it's just a time when they should be coming into their power as domestic batsmen, figuring out what this whole shit is about. So I'm excited to see what those guys can do, especially Glenn Phillips, Sean Solier, and Mark Chapman with the bat wildcard. Do you have any ideas, questions, queries, comments on the Auckland Aces?
Yeah, I love the look of this squad. I think, first of all, getting Heinrich Milan into coach, guy who's won a couple championships in a row, someone who knows exactly what it takes to win games in Plunket Shield, could be what takes this team to a next level. I think they're going to get a lot less out of Lockie Ferguson because he's going to be playing. He was their go-to strike bowler alongside Will Somerville, who was the dude getting the reps and bowling the overs. So that is that's the obvious weakness that this team would have had, because Lockie Ferguson, he's still playing for Auckland, but I think everyone's pretty much of a consensus at this point that he is pushing to be an all-format player for the Black Caps. But if you look at their other Black Caps contracted players, Martin Guptill, Colin Munro, Jeet Raval, none of them are all three-format guys. So they should get a couple games in for each of those guys along the way. Jeet Raval should be playing most of these games, I think, scoring plenty of runs as you'd hope. I'm not quite sure how because they're tests against England, which will clash, I think, with Plunket Shield, but the Aussie test shouldn't because it'll be in the break. So, and of course, we're playing a lot of 2020 cricket over the whole next year, really. So Kyle Jamieson seems to be just an extraordinarily useful signing for these guys, exactly what they needed to pick up some of the overs if they can't get them out of Lockie Ferguson. And Corey Anderson just being an experienced guy in the middle order with the bat. We know he can score runs at this level. He can score at different paces as well. It's just really only injuries that have held him back for so long, but those injuries have been so substantial that he's fallen right off the picture to where if he can put in a full season here, he's an underrated prospect, really, for Auckland. And yeah, it would be the obvious thing to say that this could be a breakout year for Glenn Phillips, but that would be also a dumb thing to say because really his breakout season was last year where he was bloody excellent. So Mark Chapman is on a similar trajectory. If they get runs out of those two, you got Corey Anderson tying both the batting and hopefully also the bowling order together. You got Kyle Jamieson picking up some overs with consistent performances, getting a bit of bounce and a bit of pace down the wicket, mixing it up from their other seamers who are more sort of wicket-to-wicket swing bowlers and such, those sort of varieties. I really like what this team has to offer, and I think they could be, pushing for a title for what it's worth this season.
And it's a good situation for Heinrich Milan, who had a young, talented group at Central Stags, and he a lot of these players are very good at the Central Stags squad, and Heinrich Milan wasn't responsible for them coming into the domestic circuit, but Heinrich Milan did get the best out of them and saw many of them develop into black caps. So the impact of Heinrich Milan with that Auckland Aces group is going to be very interesting to observe. And if I was to select one undercover brother, just someone to watch out for who no one is going to talk about, I'm always interested in what Ben Lister does with the ball, just because he's a left armer who can move the ball away from the right-hander. He's a left armer who usually tends to rely on that movement away from the right-hander. It's just a different skill set. So if you're a left-handed batsman facing Ben Lister, you're going to have the ball kind of ducking into you, which is a awkward feeling from a lefty. And then, if you're a right-handed batsman, you tend to expect the ball to swing into your pads. You're prepared for that. But if the ball's nipping across you, it's a slightly different challenge. So Ben Lister is someone to watch out for there. We'll wiggle down to the wobbly,
down but also up,
down and up to Northern District's Knights, who, again, just a solid all-round squad and plenty of black caps players there who, this is the challenge for Northern District's Knights, and they've always succeeded in this challenge, which is a testament to their academies, a testament to their coaching, testament to their development programs and all of that, because all the clubs have to have X amount of contracted players. The Northern Districts are going to get, good service from their black caps when they're available, but then they have to have the depth to be able to roll out a playing 11 when the black caps are away and none of them are playing, and that's what they can do with their squad. So you're going to see a lot of maybe not so much of Daryl Mitchell, Tim Seifert, and because there's a lot of T20 cricket this summer, isn't there, wildcards? So they have worked their way into the T20 setup with the Black Caps and Scott Kugelheim, and that's come at the same time where there's going to be a lot of T20 cricket in preparation for World T20. So do you have any views just on the blending of the Black Caps and the Northern District's Knights? Because you got the best Black Caps, then you've got some kind of one format Black Caps, and then you've got the young players who are coming into the T20 setup at a time when there's going to be a lot of T20 cricket played. So how do you view the blending of the Black Caps and the Knights situation there, wildcard?
26 2020 internationals over the next 12 months leading up into the 2020 World Cup, where there'll be even more. So that's on average, not even including that World Cup, that's on average like a 2020 every fortnight. And knowing that cricket is a very seasonal sport, that that suggests pretty strongly that, well, what it suggests what we already knew, which is that 2020 cricket is going to be a major priority over the next year, which, for good and for bad, it's still going to be, for what, 3.5 months until we play another ODI. The World Cup finalists not even getting to play another one until February, which is so disappointing, but I could go on about that every single time we talk about cricket. I probably do. It's best not to dwell. Because the Northern Districts have a good core of players who they've brought up. Kane Williamson, sort of Trent Bolt, Tim Southey, guys who've been Mitchell Santner, I suppose. Ish Sodhi was from Auckland, but got his chance with Northern Districts. Has only played for Northern Districts. Guys who have come up with Northern Districts and established themselves as Black Caps players. But when they also then went and signed Colin de Gronholm and Neil Wagner, was it a year ago or 2 years ago? There was a fair bit of chatter around cricket circles about bloody Northern Districts, the Northern Districts Mafia, just, signing everybody, running the show. How's anyone going to beat them? The fact is, they weren't. If they were, where did they finish last year? They finished fourth. They won 3 of their 8 games, lost 2, drew 3. Nothing special, mid-table. Because the Black Caps don't tend to play that much in domestic cricket, and you get mixed bags. Ish Sodhi played heaps last year and was top wicket taker. Kane Williamson, if he played one game, he wouldn't have played any more than one game, So it's not like, it's just such an overrated factor. I think having that many Black Caps is almost a problem, because it means you're having to play second 11s more often than not. And that's where what you're saying about Northern Districts comes back, because they do have a really good sort of second tier of players, including guys like Dean Brownlee, Daniel Flynn, Anton Devcic, who have played before the Black Caps, not really on that scene anymore, but have international experience, who are great, reliable domestic players who can carry them. And that's why they consider consistently being a pretty useful team, if not the outstanding world beaters that people sometimes would think they might be, just to look at the players they have contracted and available. The actual game status of most of those players is a different story, but Northern Districts, relatively strong squad. Looking at that lot, I would say a little suspect about their wicket-taking abilities. Do you think that's fair to say? If that is, Ish Sodhi and Tim Southey and Trent Bolt and such aren't playing, Neil Wagner as well.
Yeah, but you can say that about, you can say, they're a bit short of batsmen, a bit short of wicket-taking for a lot of these teams and a lot of these clubs. There's X factor doesn't come in spades at domestic cricket level, so that's they do have a brewing seam attack. I'd say Zach Gibson, Brett Hampton, Brett Randall. They're the young seamers who are going to shoulder a lot of the responsibilities when the Black Caps are away, under the tutelage and guidance of James Baker, the veteran. What I'm most interested in is Henry Cooper, who was the leading run scorer for the Northern District Knights last season. I'm most interested in him because he's a young opener, and he's kind of making he did play some Ford Trophy cricket last summer, but he's making a focus, I think, of playing long form. He feels like a long form opener, and we don't have too many of those young talented openers coming through. Last season he averaged 36 with 4 half centuries, so watch out for Henry Cooper. He's my undercover brother, and just all round watch out for that guy, because he might settle into just a nice groove of domestic cricket. And the other one is Barrett Popley, who exploded. I think he scored over 1,000 runs in a season a couple years ago, but has pretty much just fallen off a cliff since then. So it's come to the point where he's gonna consistently earn opportunities with the Knights because there's like goodwill, there's good vibes there. But he hasn't really done anything recently. Like the last 2 seasons of Plunket Shield cricket, he hasn't really done anything to command selection moving forward. To some extent, he's been eating off that massive season a couple of years ago, and it hasn't quite manifested into anything else. So watch out for Barrett Popley, just to see if he can find some runs, because he showed what he can do, and then he suffered that second-year syndrome, third-year syndrome kind of thing where it's like, was he really that good? So I'm just interested to see what direction Barrett Popley takes this summer.
Yeah, Barrett Popley, 161 runs in 7 innings at an average of 23, top score of 36 last season, so nothing special there. That's actually the exact same amount of runs as Jeetan Patel scored last season, which, if you're keeping up with Jeetan Patel in terms of wickets, you're doing alright. If you're keeping up with him in terms of runs and you're a batsman, you probably want to do better. Also, one other name to chuck out is Joe Carter, who hits a rather significant 6 when he's in the mood.
Jeetan Patel did play 4 games, 7 games to Barrett Popley's 4 games.
He batted a couple times more, I think.
Easy on, far out. If you're playing 3 extra games, I'm sure Barrett Popley scores another run.
Well, he actually only batted 1 more innings and he had a better high score, Jeetan.
That's true. We're countering each other with facts and figures.
Yeah,
Central District Stags, they have an absolutely stacked lineup. Just look at some of these names. Listen to some of these names. Doug Bracewell, Tom Bruce, Dane Cleaver, Greg Hay, Adam Milne, Ajaz Patel, Seth Rance, Blair Tickner, Ben Wheeler, George Worker. These guys are the best domestic cricket club because they have the best group of players who are always available, and the best ability is availability. And that's what the Central District Stags get from their fringe black caps, that's kind of the best position you want to be in. Like, you definitely want to be producing black caps. That's a good feeling. You also want to win games of cricket in Plunket Shield in Ford Trophy, and that means you need the best players who aren't quite at the established black caps level, and that's what the Stags have. You're going to have a bowling attack of Doug Bracewell, Seth Rance, Blair Tickner, Ben Wheeler, and Adam Milne, which is kind of bonkers. And that's made possible because of the batting ability of Doug Bracewell, Ben Wheeler, and Adam Milne, who are all going to bat, 6, 7, 8. So then you can carry extra bowlers like Blair Tickner, Seth Rance, and Ajaz Patel, who will round out the bowling attack. But you get great value from some of the best bowlers in Aotearoa who are also reasonably good batsmen. The Greg Hay, he's the best opener who isn't a black cap. He's the best Plunket Shield opener pretty much, so he's always near the top of the run scoring charts in Plunket Shield cricket. I've got him as someone who could step up and do a job for the black caps in a test here, a test there, if Jet Raval or Tom Latham gets injured, because he's a bit older, he's a bit more experienced, knows his game, and he's earned that opportunity through a weight of runs at the Plunket Shield level. So if he's scoring heaps of runs, don't be surprised if one of the other 2 openers gets injured, then you see Greg Hay play a test or a series and just do a job for the team. I'm always fairly interested in what Dane Cleaver's doing. I think he was the leading run scorer for the Stags last season, averaging 43, and he's also a wicketkeeper batsman, so he's kind of been overtaken by the likes of Tim Seifert, Tom Blundell, those type of characters in the wicketkeeper rankings, but he's someone who consistently scores runs in Plunket Shield cricket. He's done it over a number of seasons now, and I really like what Dane Cleaver does. Do you have any little notes there for the Stags wildcard?
Yeah, back-to-back champions, the Central District Stags. Pretty obvious to see why when you look at it's not just the quality they have at domestic level in the squad, it's like the balance, like you were saying, with how some of those all-rounders just allow you to pick extra bowling options and they strengthen the batting lineup, and you got guys who can do a job both sides, which it makes such a difference. they're just a bloody good team, man. The one question mark here is that they have lost their coach. So I don't know. Do you think that's going to be something that could be a significant factor, or more along the lines of this team knows who they are, they know what they're doing, and they're just going to keep on churning out runs and wickets and winning games of Plunket Shield cricket?
Not a factor at all. Like, they're just, everything's set up there. They've got the same, like Lance Hamilton, former Stags player, like oversees the cricket program. They've got the same players who are all extremely experienced at this level. So, like, by the end of it, I'm not even sure. Like, obviously Heinrich Milan ran the show, but you got to, especially cricket these days, you got to wonder, with that roster he had, you know, was he just kind of facilitating what the players wanted to work on, as opposed to, we need to do this, this, and this because this is how I want it. I think with that roster, you can kind of be a bit more flexible as a head coach in cricket, which we see at the international level all the time. It's more so about what the players want, what they think they want, what preparation they need. So I'm not too sure about the impact of the departure of Heinrich Milan. Like, they've just got everything set up, ready to go there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one. I think his impact on Auckland could be huge, but I think the negative impact on Central Districts will be pretty minimal, because it's like, this is a well-oiled machine at this point. You know, you wind it up and let it go, and you can walk away. It'll take care of itself. And they're good. I not going to predict a three-peat, a Los Angeles Lakers Chicago Bulls three-peat, but they're certainly going to be one of the challenges to win a lot of games and to be up near the top of that table again come the end of the season.
My undercover brother for the Stags is Willem Luddick, who is a fairly solid batsman, dabbles in a bit of medium pace as well, former South Africa under-19 representative, and I will talk a lot about Dean Foxcroft when it comes to the Otago Volts. But Dean Foxcroft and Willem Luddick played together for South Africa under-19s, I believe, like a couple years ago, and then they both came to Aotearoa as part of the plethora of South African Kiwis in the domestic cricket circuit. So watch out for Willem Luddick. Not sure if he's going to play too much when they've got a full-strength first 11, but he's the type of cricketer who, as he settles into domestic cricket, is going to just, everything's going to look easier and easier for him. I think he had a few struggles last season, but the talent is there, and that's when you're in that Stag setup. If you got the talent, things are probably going to work out pretty well. We'll move down to the Wellington Firebirds, where Hamish Bennett's the best bowler in Aotearoa. Like, he's always, the last 2 seasons he's averaged under 20 with the ball, so he's found a nice bit of like Ross Taylor twilight years dominance, which I love to see. You've just got a really solid group of cricketers here with the Wellington Firebirds, guys like Michael Bracewell, Devon Conway. Andrew Fletcher was a surprise package last season, scoring runs in the Ford Trophy specifically pretty much for fun. Like, I think at one stage he was just like scoring 50 plus every single game, which was cool for him. He's another South African Kiwi. Wellington have Devon Conway, Malcolm Knopfel, and Andrew Fletcher as their, I say it, Kiwi Africans. So they're their Kiwi Africans, so keep an eye on those dudes. And they also, we know Devon Conway's extremely talented. He was the best batsman from last summer. He was the best batsman like overall, factoring in Plunket Shield, factoring in Ford Trophy, factoring in Super Smash. So Devon Conway will hopefully build on that and add a bit more to his game in terms of dominating bowling attacks. Logan Van Beek has been playing for Derbyshire in England county cricket, and he's under the tutelage of Hamish Bennett, so I'm interested to see how his bowling looks this summer, just on the juicy wickets at the Basin Reserve. Any thoughts, ideas on the Wellington Firebirds here, Wildcard?
This is purely a theory. I don't have any evidence to suggest it other than the old eye test, but I'm definitely of the opinion that playing with Hamish Bennett has improved Jimmy Neesham's bowling significantly. So, yeah, Logan Van Beek probably in line to be the next recipient of all that. Devon Conway is the guy who stands out because, yeah, he was the best player, the best batsman in terms of factoring all formats. You're exactly right there. Like I think he was a top run scorer in the Plunket Shield as well, wasn't he? 659 runs, 2 centuries, 2 50s in 12 innings, average of 82.34, high score 203 not out. That's pretty substantial right there. He is pretty interesting because he's in that sort of extended Black Caps group that's having a little inter-squad 2020 hit around at the moment as we speak. And he becomes eligible for the Black Caps about a month out from the 2020 World Cup next year. So certainly a guy who people have sort of fast-tracked for the for international cricket once he's ready to go, once all the paperwork's done and everything's, the timing's all right. There's a few guys we've said have done well and didn't do as well last year and want to bounce back, or guys who need to consolidate what they're doing. Devon Conway seems to be a guy you don't even have to worry about. He's just going to score runs in whatever format he happens to be playing. Yeah, if you got that, you got Hamish Bennett, you got a couple of these. Wellington seems to be a team that always manages to find good opening batsmen as well, by the way. Gene Patel, of course, a bit more experienced. They're a bit of an older team, I think, looking at some of this. But one guy who's sort of bucking the trend there is Rachin Ravindra. I've seen a fair bit about this guy. What can you tell me about him? Because he seems to be one of the big up-and-comers here.
He played for New Zealand A before he made his Plunket Shield debut. So he was taken to the United Arab Emirates about this time last year to face Pakistan A, and he spent a lot of time. There was also the series against India A back in Aotearoa last summer as well, and he spent a lot of time in the New Zealand A setup before making his Plunket Shield debut. He's an opening batsman who can also bowl a bit of spin, and he, like I mentioned Henry Cooper before as a young opening batsman. Henry Cooper's more like maybe he could just be an exciting guy to watch out for. Rachin Ravindra is he's the big dog prospect. Like he's been identified and celebrated already, and this is a fairly crucial kind of time for him, just moving into consistent domestic cricket and establishing himself as a Plunket Shield batsman. There is a interesting little young group there at the Wellington Firebirds. Rachin Ravindra, Ben Sears is a hostile seam bowler, and then Jacob Buller is a batsman who can bowl spin as well. Rachin Ravindra and Buller were in the same under-19 Aotearoa team, so they are a couple of interesting blokes. And yeah, Ben Sears, under the guidance of Hamish Bennett, is developing into an interesting little bowling prospect that we might need to watch out for as well. Yeah, you took my thunder there because it's all about Rachin Ravindra in terms of undercover brother. He's got a bit more of that headline status to him than I'd usually roll with for an undercover brother. Hopefully he starts the season opening the batting in Plunket Shield, and he can just settle into a domestic cricket summer, into a Plunket Shield campaign, and it'll just be up to him how he takes that opportunity and what type of runs flow from his bat.
Yeah, Wellington only won one game last year, so they'll be, they seem like a team who are better than that, though. I think sometimes it's just a bit, the results don't always reflect things, and you get individual performances, and you get especially with domestic cricket, where the focus is often on players pushing for international level rather than the results specifically outside of the playing group anyway. So yeah, no, they're a team I could see getting a few decent ones along the way. I think it's one guy who I suspect could maybe play more of a role than a lot of these other Black Caps that we've been talking about is Jimmy Neesham. It depends. He could, go around doing the 2020 circuit, but he seems to keep not being. He wasn't in the 2020 squad in Sri Lanka, and he was a big breakout guy. Well, not breakout, but resurgent guy at the World Cup. But he's not on the test scale anymore. We're playing a lot of 2020s rather than ODI cricket. First of all, he should be in the top 11 for any 2020 game. But if he does get to play a bit of Plunket Shield, I think he could be a guy who takes Wellington over the top. But yeah, as with any Black Cap, it's suspicious circumstances as to how much they will actually play throughout the season. But yeah, the Firebirds, if they get the runs from the guys they hope and the wickets from the guys they hope, they've got the dominant players leading the way to be able to carry them to some good results, I think, along the season. They also have the best home ground of any team, of course, in New Zealand cricket.
The thing about the Wellington Firebirds is they just don't quite have that top line talent. So they do have Hamish Bennett, they do have Devon Conway, but the other, and this might be the season where that gap is bridged by the development of other players. I think they lost a lot of experience over the past few seasons, and they've had to refresh their roster, and it didn't quite come to anything substantial last season. And then you've got factors like Jeetan Patel averaging 48 with the ball, and that it's going to struggle when your best bowler, your best spinner, is averaging well over 40. Jeetan Patel's coming off yet another season of county cricket in which he took over 50 wickets, so he's coming in with form, he's coming in with confidence, as he tends to do most winters into most summers. He's been taking 50 wickets consistently for at least 4, 5, 6 years over in England. So how he fares in the last kind of 2 to 3 seasons of his career could be an interesting narrative to keep an eye on. But Wellington are not going to win games if Jeetan Patel's averaging 48. Plain and simple as that. Canterbury. The thing about all these domestic cricket clubs and their squad selections and what they're doing now is the young players on offer. So Auckland skew a bit younger, and these young guys have got experience, so it's just kind of younger players with experience is a very exciting thing in domestic cricket. But just in my time covering domestic cricket, there has been a drastic shift from grizzly veterans to ushering in a younger wave, and that is kind of led by Canterbury, who they've only really got Andrew Ellis and Stephen Murdoch as their OG veterans, which is only 2. Stephen Murdoch was their best batsman last time around, I believe. He had
average is 73.83.
Yeah, and he only played 5 games, so that's why his average is so high. And Canterbury don't really want Stephen Murdoch to do that again, because if Stephen Murdoch's doing that again, it means they are relying on him again, because there weren't a whole lot of runs scored by other blokes in that lineup. You got to go Cole McConchie's always fairly good. He averaged 42 last season, and he is someone to watch out for. Bowls very good off spin, reasonably classy batsman, and he's someone who I can see maybe in a season or 2, if he can sustain a very good level of performance in Plunket Shield and Ford Trophy, and even Super Smash. He's got a skill set that translates into T20 international cricket or franchise cricket as well. So watch out for Cole McConchie. But yeah, there's just a lack of runs and wickets from the Canterbury team last season kind of cost them, but you can somewhat put that down to just lack of experience, especially with the bowling group. So Matt Henry was their leading bowler last summer. He only played 4 games, but still averaged 21, which was great work from Matt Henry. But then you got to look at the other bowlers. Now, again, all these bowlers are reasonably young, so I just want to throw this up and as a point about excitement or intrigue as to who's going to emerge as their best kind of prospect, their best player this season. Andrew Hazeldine, second best to Matt Henry. He's averaging 39 last season. Will Williams, averaging 33 last season. Kyle Jamieson only played 3 games, 18.8. That's why we're talking about Kyle Jamieson with Auckland. Henry Shipley, 49. So those are their young seamers. Fraser Sheet, 36. These are the young seamers who they rely heavily on, and they need to be better this season. They will be better this season. And I'm interested in who from that group of Henry Shipley, Will Williams, Fraser Sheet, Andrew Hazeldine, who out of those dudes is going to stand up and really command consistent selection alongside Ed Nuttall, who is suddenly the leader of the bowling attack to my mind. He's been on the scene for a long time now, left armer, swing bowler, very good skill set. I think he battles a fair amount of injuries over the years, so hopefully he can stay on the park. Very good spin department with the Canterbury team. Todd Astle, Theo Van Workom is a rising spinner, left-arm spinner. Blake Coburn is a left-arm leggy, which is a bit funky and does pretty well. So spin department's good. Seam department, interested in who stands up. And then you've got some of the best kind of young batsmen who haven't done much recently. Ken McClure, Chad Bowes, Jack Boyle, Leo Carter, those type of dudes all have great potential. Everyone in this Canterbury group has very good potential, and they've shown signs in their short careers already. So it's kind of who's going to stand up and take this team to the next level is what I'm interested in here, Wildcard.
Cam Fletcher as well, I think, where he averaged 46. So, Stephen Murdoch clearly the dude who dominated with the bat for them, but they did get little chipping in innings from a lot of people, and they finished second last year. They did pretty well. They were still in the running to potentially. I mean, I don't think it would have happened. They would have needed an extraordinarily good result in the final game, but final game abandoned after the Christchurch shootings. So settled for second place there for Canterbury, but a pretty good season with a pretty young team, and certainly something they can build off. But yeah, I mean, looking at the numbers from last season, and most of these guys are returning, it's pretty clear that your bowlers there do need to, someone does need to step up and run that show, because Matt Henry only played half the games and took 23 wickets. He 8 wickets more than anybody else. I suspect if you look at the games they won, they would have largely, I don't have time to research this, but I expect the games they won were probably the games in which Matt Henry played, and more often than not anyway. They've got, Todd Astle doesn't ever hardly play for the Black Caps, but he tends to be in most squads these days. So if he suddenly isn't playing as much, then I think that bowling attack, it's not that it looks vulnerable, it's just that you, like you're saying, you need someone to step up and do the business, because they have mostly been able to cover the fact that Tom Latham, Henry Nicholls over the last few years have really set themselves up as just every squad Black Caps guys. So if they've been able to handle the fact that those guys haven't been available as much, but not having Todd Astle as often, I think, would be, you might be taking out a little bit of a linchpin there. But, we'll see how it goes, because he might be a guy who's consistently 13th man and released to play Plunket Shield or whatever. So I don't even know what to think about when it comes to Todd Astle getting selected. We do know that Gary Stead is Black Caps coach. He's Cantabrian. He likes a Cantabrian, as all Cantabrians do. So, a couple of these guys could push themselves into Black Cap selection nice and quickly with a solid season. There are certainly plenty of options there amongst the squad, aren't there?
I don't condone your statement about a Canterbury bias. That's all you.
Yeah, well, I living in Northland, where there's clearly a Tauranga bias against the beautiful Cobham Oval and Whangarei have get two games I think this season, and the nowhere near enough cricket in the mighty Northland.
I don't really see the connection between that and you pointing
It's a
out how
well-known
one-eyed
fact.
Cantabrians are. There's not much of a connection there. It's a stretch. Again, I'm not endorsing it. Like, it's all you here. You mentioned the games they won might have come with Matt Henry. Well,
True,
the games they might have won might have also come with Kyle Jamieson and their bowling attack. So he took 10 wickets in just 3 games. So you've got Matt Henry playing 4 games, taking 23 wickets, and then you've got Kyle Jamieson taking 10 wickets in 3 games, both averaging between 18 and 21. So your 2 best bowlers didn't play a whole lot of cricket together, and understandably, but yeah, I would suggest that the games they won probably came with Matt Henry and Kyle Jamieson, or one of those dudes in the bowling attack. The bloke who I'm gonna, other than Cole McConchie, I really like Cole McConchie, and I will say, if you're building a cricket team with Andrew Ellis, Stephen Murdoch, Cole McConchie, Cameron Fletcher as your wicketkeeper, and like if that's your core group of players, with some other reasonably talented players in there, like Ed Nuttall, like Chad Bowes, those type of characters, you've got a really good, solid cricket team. So shout out to Cole McConchie. I'm going to go with Jack Boyle, who I'm not sure how much... No, Jack Boyle and Leo Carter, like they are 2 young batsmen down in Canterbury. Chad Bowes has kind of established himself as an opener for Canterbury. He's another Kiwi African. And then it's just who from the group of Jack Boyle, Leo Carter and Ken McClure, who didn't play a whole lot of cricket last summer but comes back into the mix this summer, which one of those 3 commands attention through their run scoring? Those 3 guys, especially with the batting group, combine for a bit of an undercover brother status there.
So Canterbury they lost their first game against CD, which was a game that probably ended up costing them the title, even though it was the first game of the season. Drew with Northern, lost to Auckland, and then in round 4, the last game before the sort of mid-season break there, they beat Otago by 9 wickets. Probably to be expected. Otago were the bottom team. Then they came back out in February when the Plunket Shield resumed, beat CD by a couple wickets in a game where Matt Henry took 5 for in the first innings. Then in the next one, beat Wellington by 9 wickets. Matt Henry with 9 in the match there. Beat Auckland by 80 runs, where we had... this was a rain-affected game, which was basically just 2 innings. But Todd Astle got 5 for in bowling Auckland out in the second innings, and then they had their last game abandoned. So, yeah, it seems like those Black Caps bowlers were played pretty expansive roles in the games that they did win. But hey, that's a team that won 4 games in a row, but specifically 3 games in a row coming out of over the second half of the season. So if we're looking at a team that has a relatively high amount of young guys looking to impress, well then if you improve over the course of the season, that's a pretty good sign, isn't it?
Definitely is. Wildcard, you mentioned the Otago Volts, and we'll finish with the Otago Volts, who they've had a bit of an unfortunate situation because 2 of their kind of most talented younger players have both retired. Warren Barnes, a lively seamer, he has stopped playing cricket indefinitely because of injury, and he kind of emerged through the Super Smash. He's pretty quick and moved down from Auckland Aces to join the Otago Volts and made a bit of an impact there, but he has left cricket. And then Sean Hicks, another... Warren Barnes is a Kiwi African from Auckland. Sean Hicks is a Kiwi African from Auckland as well. I think they both played for Howick Pakuranga as well. Another little
That
fact
adds
there,
up.
which will come into play with another lad I'm about to introduce. But Sean Hicks had to retire because of concussion. So he apparently suffered a bunch of concussions playing rugby for Auckland Grammar, and then he suffered a few concussions playing cricket as well, and that became a factor in his day-to-day life. So Sean Hicks is New Zealand under-19 rep, one of the most talented players under the age of 25 at the moment. Well, not at the moment, like last season. Like his retirement's not like a breeze over that kind of note. Like, he is a very talented cricketer who unfortunately had to retire due to concussion. So they've lost two of their younger players, but the pickups the Otago Volts have made this summer are pretty exciting. Nick Kelly moves down from Northern District's Knights to join the Otago Volts, dynamic left-hander who needs to take his career to the next level. He's got to kind of establish himself in Plunket Shield cricket. He's a lively Super Smash Ford Trophy player, and he'll be looking to hit a next level with the Plunket Shield. Otago Volts also signed Dean Foxcroft, who I mentioned earlier, Kiwi African from Central Districts, who breakout player of the summer last time around. Like, he's a very talented batsman, can bowl off spin as well, so he will likely slot straight into the Otago Volts first 11. And then Dale Phillips, younger brother of Glenn Phillips, another Kiwi African, and I believe Dale and Glenn Phillips are also from Howick Pakuranga in Auckland as well. So a couple of connections there. Interested to see how Dale Phillips goes. Haven't seen or heard too much about him. He is from Auckland, moves down to Otago. So a couple of shrewd recruitment moves from the Otago Volts to revitalise their roster. I think the Otago Volts will be a lot better this summer, just with how things have gone. A little bit of injection with those new players, and then you look at guys like Neil Broom, Jacob Duffy, Anaru Kitchen, Michael Rippon, Hamish Rutherford. Those dudes are all reasonably good. Even guys like Nathan Smith, Mitch Renwick, and Josh Finney have also been factors over the past season or two as well. Nathan Smith is a supremely talented cricketer, bowls medium pace and can bat up the order. Like, really good all-rounder. Matthew Bacon, seam bowler. He was the third best wicket taker last season in a last placed Otago Volts team. 31 wickets at an average of 24. So watch out for Matthew Bacon bowling alongside the surprisingly experienced Jacob Duffy and Nathan Smith and Michael Ray. Like, that's their seam attack. They're all under the age of 27, I'd suggest, off the top of my head. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. And yeah, then you got your leaders in the batting department, Neil Broom, Anaru Kitchen, those type of jokers, Hamish Rutherford as well. So I'm just interested to see what the Otago Volts throw up this season and which players are standout players from the Volts, because regardless of whether they're winning games or they're struggling again, like, you look around the domestic circuit and there's all these teams are pretty good, so it's not crazy to imagine another year in which the Otago Volts struggle just because of how good the other teams are. But regardless of their results, there will be players that emerge as somewhat interesting. Last season, it was Matt Bacon up near the top of the wicket-taking department. And then with the bat, you had Mitch Renwick, who finished up the season 6th in runs. He only scored 1 century and 1 half century, so he only averaged 33, but he did, like, just with little scores here and there, I guess, he did climb his way to 6th in run scoring for the Plunket Shield. He's a wicket-keeper wicket-keeper batsman from Central Districts, moved down to Otago Volts. He probably won't do a whole lot of wicket-keeping this season, I think, because they have Max Chu, who's a nice, talented wicketkeeper batsman prospect. And the Volts also have an opener, I believe. Let me just double check that, by the name of Cam Hawkins, who, he's an opener, so he opens alongside Hamish Rutherford last season, and in 6 games, he is averaging 34. So 6 games, 11 innings, and he hit 4 scores over 50. So my undercover brother will be Cameron Hawkins, just in terms of what he can do opening the innings. And then, like, Matt Bacon and Mitch Renwick served the example last season of players who can still emerge and break out of a team regardless of the results. So I'm just interested about that circumstance again.
So Otago were last in the standings last season and have been last in the standings in 3 of the last 4 seasons. The one season they weren't last, they were second to last. So clearly Otago has had a few struggles over recent times. The difference in domestic cricket between the best and the worst teams is never a distance you can't cover. Like, it's never out of reach. So a couple good performances, a couple breakout players, and you never quite know. I think, just looking at this, they probably do rely on old mate Bacon being able to repeat the dose again. If you can get consistent wickets out of him again, then the other guys is going to find it a little bit easier. And just scoring runs is obviously a bit of a important factor in any cricket game. I think that's an area where they've actually restocked quite nicely. I have questions about their ability to take wickets, but I think they should be able to keep themselves in games with runs, get a few of those batting bonus points, will help them out on the standings as well. If you've got Hamish Rutherford is a guy who we saw him get a little bit of a black caps, can't quite call it a renaissance. He got called up for that 2020 series in Sri Lanka at short notice, came in and got a duck, but oh well, at least he's a guy who, at domestic cricket, tends to score a lot of runs. He's solid. And Neil Broom, I think I'm right in saying, didn't play red ball cricket last season. He's come out of sort of a semi-retirement in that one to shore up that middle order alongside Dean Foxcroft. So if you got those two at 4 and 5, you got Hamish Rutherford opening the batting, and guys like Hawkins, Dale Phillips, a couple others being able to fill in around. You should be able to scramble through to a pretty useful top 5 there, and I think that's the hope for Otago this season. If they can get good runs out of that top 5, they should be able to compete in most games and maybe win themselves a couple in good circumstances if they're able to chip in with a few wickets as well.
Yeah, I think perhaps their struggles have come with players just underperforming, because you look at someone like Jacob Duffy, who is 25 years old and he has played 56 first-class games. He made his debut in 2012, and if you allow me to digress here, Wildcard, his debut Plunket Shield game, he was playing alongside Craig Cumming, Sam Wells, Nathan McCullum, Derek DeBorder, Neil Wagner, Ian Butler. So this is a dude who was 25 years old, extremely experienced, and he was I think he was the captain of the Otago Volts last season. Last season he averaged 46 with the ball in Plunket Shield cricket. He's got a career average of 35 in first class cricket, which, given his experience, is a pretty solid record. You'd like it to be better, but it's solid. So I just think if a lot of their players perform to their potential or just play solid cricket, they will be a factor in the Plunket Shield, but their struggles have kind of come with players underperforming and not really proving to be a factor at this level. So just interesting times with what the Otago Volts dish up for us.
Season starts on the 21st of October, Mondays. That is Monday. 10:30 a.m. starts across the board, as always. Free entry at every game, apparently, according to the New Zealand Cricket website anyway, which is bloody lovely. If you love your Plunket Shield cricket, get down and catch a few sessions now and then, and make sure people realise that there is a large appetite for domestic 4-dayers in New Zealand. I popped down to one at Cobham Oval last year and very much enjoyed my afternoon in the sun. We'll be doing so in March or whenever it is that they play their next game. Where have we got here? We got Auckland Aces hosting Central Stags at Eden Park Outer Oval in round 1. Canterbury hosting Northern Districts at Hagley. Wellington hosting Otago at the Basin Reserve. All great venues to watch cricket. It sounds like a bit of a veritable feast, Doc.
Indeed it is, and we'll be rolling out plenty of domestic cricket content, whether written or podcasted, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, if you enjoy the Niche Cache and the Niche Cast, jump on Patreon where you can support us directly. We're going to do another Patreon podcast for our beautiful patrons where we discuss whatever it is that we want to discuss, whether it's sport or outside the sporting realm. So it's just a little example of stuff we're doing for our Patreon community, our Patreon whānau, so jump on that. Otherwise, your ears, your listening is more than enough for us. Just having people enjoy what we do is nice. So kia kaha, stay beautiful, and we'll be back whenever you see us next, or hear us next, or read us next. Cheer, cheer.